So this, of course, is the question. Is there a political civil war-like situation in South Korea? The developments in the last 24 hours have given rise to this question. South Korea's authorities were in a 6-hour-long standoff with the presidential security guards who prevented the arrest of the now suspended President Yoon Yeol. The investigators have called off their attempt to arrest the impeached president, citing security concerns. The Corruption Investigation Office said in a statement that the execution of the warrant was effectively impossible due to the ongoing standoff, as concerns for the safety of the personnel on site led to the decision to halt the arrest. Now, earlier, the officials were led through a heavy security barricades to enter into the residence to execute the warrant, but the soldiers under the Presidential Security Service engaged in a confrontation with them. Now, previously, Yoon's security service had blocked any attempts by the police to enter into the presidential office. Now, Monday is, of course, the deadline for the warrant to be executed. The investigators have sought the warrant after the impeached president ignored 3 rounds of summons for questioning. Now, Yoon's legal team has called the attempt to execute the arrest warrant as illegal and invalid. Now, during the arrest attempt, dozens of police buses and hundreds of uniformed police lined the streets outside of the presidential compound in central Seoul. And about 2,700 police and 135 police buses were deployed in the area to prevent clashes, after Yoon's supporters faced off with anti-Yoon demonstrators on Thursday. Now, some of his supporters camped outside of his compound in the bitter cold, holding all-night prayer sessions. Meanwhile, prosecutors on Friday indicted 2 top military officials, the Army Chief of Staff General Park An-soo and the Chief of the Army Special Warfare Commander Lieutenant General Kwok Jong-kyun, over their alleged roles in the short-lived imposition of martial law last month. And according to the prosecution, they were indicted under detention on charges of insurrection and abuse of power. Several other North Korean officials have also either stepped down or faced the axe in the fallout of the failed martial law bid. The list includes Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, the Interior Minister Lee Song-min, the Inspector General of the Ministry of Justice Ryu Hyuk, the Police Chief Cho Ji-ho, and the Metropolitan Police Chief Kim Bong-sik, amongst others. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening at this moment in South Korea, we're joined by Ms. Soo-young-oh, who is a senior journalist. She's joining us live on this broadcast from Seoul. Now, Ms. Soo-young-oh, thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for taking time out and speaking to us on the conditions at this moment in South Korean politics. Now, given the developments that have happened just the last 24 hours in the nation, where the police got into a tussle with the presidential security guards, who prevented the arrest of the suspended president, and also Yoon's team that is fighting the legal battle in the court. Now, what kind of legal alternatives or legal options does Yoon Yeol have at the moment at his disposal?
Well, first of all, it's important to understand that there are two things going on here that President Yoon's legal team have to deal with. First of all, there's the criminal investigations into suspected insurrection. That's all the fuss that we saw happening near his residence today, as investigative bodies have been closing in on him and other figures who have been implicated in the martial law order. The second thing going on is the Constitutional Court's impeachment trial. That's because the National Assembly last month on December 14th, they voted to impeach the president. And after that, the case was handed to the Constitutional Court, which has 180 days to decide whether to uphold the impeachment. So there are 2 things going on right now. And it would be much easier if the impeachment case was, of course, going on first, but because then it will be pretty clear, it would be quite conclusive, really, that if the Constitutional Court had found that the president had his actions had been unconstitutional, therefore removed from office, then he wouldn't be a sitting president. So the investigative authorities then would be able to arrest him, but that's not the case. We have a simultaneous we're seeing simultaneous proceedings here. So what are the options for President Yoon's legal team at the Constitutional Court? Well, obviously, they're going to make their case that his actions weren't unconstitutional. So their argument is that it was his executive right, his constitutional right to declare martial law.
Right.
The president does, the Korean constitution does have that article where the president, in fact, does have the authority to declare martial law. But another question is whether he had actually run the decision through the cabinet, and that's where the question mark lies. Cabinet members have said they did not sign the document
Right.
regarding any martial law decree being imposed. That includes former acting president and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and various other members of the cabinet. So, yeah, when it comes to whether the president's actions were constitutional, there could be some dispute there. And well, at the end of the process, if he is impeached, then his right now his presidential powers have been suspended, so he's not allowed to have any secretaries reporting to him. He can't make decisions or appointments. He can't, exercise diplomacy, things like that. All he has now is basically his title of being president. He can use some of the logistics. He can use the presidential plane, and he can have his vehicles and things like that. But of course, all of those would be stripped once he is impeached, and then he might be subject to more intensive investigations.
All right, now that was the legal aspect of what's been happening in the case, but a lot of people are saying, looking at the standoff that took place at the presidential palace, that South Korea potentially could be headed towards a civil war. Now, what's your assessment of that?
Right, well, South Koreans, I think South Korea as a nation has a knack for making opportunity out of crisis. And I certainly hope that this case is one of them. I think that it's a great opportunity to be able to find a sense of newness in politics, because we need to split this prior to and after the martial law decree. I think prior to the martial law decree, there was a huge standoff in the National Assembly between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. The Conservative, of course, being President Yoon's ruling party. And well, because the ruling party was in the minority, the opposition was basically blocking every single reform or critical bill related to people's livelihoods that the ruling party was trying to pass through Parliament. And they introduced motions to impeach scores of officials within the administration. And this was blocking basically the administration from getting anything done in terms of state governance. So some see that this was an impossible political situation. And while it obviously was a very wrong move for President Yoon to make, that's basically the kind of explanation that he's been giving all this time, that because of this dire situation where the National Assembly was basically paralyzed due to this partisan standoff, he felt like he had to do something. Obviously, that was the wrong decision, but here we are. And while we're grappling with this vacuum well, basically a vacuum of presidency, we have an acting president, of course, but as the nation deals with this political uncertainty, we've seen this political standoff continue between the opposition and ruling parties, and it's very unfortunate for the nation, as we're not seeing these politicians trying to put their heads together for the sake of the nation, to rebuild the nation. We're seeing them at each other's throats once again. And as you may know, we recently had a very unfortunate tragedy at Wuhan Airport, where a Jeju Air plane carrying over 179 passengers, it saw this terrible tragedy, and we're continuing to see lawmakers basically at each other's throats. And hopefully when we call a new snap election sometime next year, hopefully we'll see younger, much more I guess, rational politicians emerge, those who aren't, necessarily those who aren't just faithful to their party and but those who think on behalf of the nation and actually introduce more laws and introduce more, I guess, reforms to take the nation forward.
Mr. Yoon, thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us that very detailed analysis of what is happening at this moment in South Korea. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.